Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me we have some more RPG horror stories. What are your favorite conversions out there? Did you know that there's a 5e Star Wars D&D conversion system? It is sick as hell. It is so immaculate. It is so detailed. It is cool as heck. There's also one for Elder Scrolls, which is really sick as well. Hell, there's even a Pathfinder conversion to play it like Final Fantasy TTRPG, basically, with Pathfinder rules and more. I love conversion systems. I think they're so cool. What is your favorite conversion system out there? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'm gonna get to some RPG horror stories for today. I realized I don't trust DMs. I don't trust them with story, themes, and I don't trust them with mechanics. Okay, I gotta be honest, I read a little bit over here. I'm gonna put on a voice for this because this sounds like somebody that is, what's the best word to use here? Smarmy? Somebody that's smarmy. Somebody that has had such a bad experience. Now they paint all DMs as terrible people just because of maybe a few negative experiences, and they think they can do things better now. And they think, oh, all the other DMs suck. I am the only DM that can do things better because I know better. The other DMs have done this and that only a couple of times, but I'm gonna establish that all DMs suck in the world. I'll put on some sort of smarmy voice, so I hope you're used to that for a little bit. Let's continue. I don't trust them with stories. Every story they create will about how everything sucks and it's all crap, and the characters are weak and stupid and can't change anything. That NPC that you created as part of your backstory, DM will kill it. That random NPC who was almost helpful only exists so the DM can hurt me. Every possible permutation is just ammo for the DM to make the story experience as miserable as humanly freaking possible. This sounds like somebody that maybe have gotten hurt by other DMs, but to carry on that anger, like, yeah, some DMs can suck. Yeah, some DMs can be like, oh, yo, bro, this NPC is a backstory. I'm gonna use that as ammo to go against you or do something crappy to them. Yeah, some DMs can suck, but doesn't mean all DMs. It's almost like somebody's taken like a few exceptions that happen to them and voting it as a rule. That's basically what it's like. And honestly, looking at the comments, everybody's agreeing as well. This feels like somebody that like got way too hurt and now they're just basically saying all DMs suck except me, which is a crazy thing to say. I don't trust them mechanically. Feat, feature, spell says something in black and white. DM will just veto it or randomly attach a price tag pulled from thin air so steep that you will never consider using that thing 99% of the time. If it was only one of these, I could maybe think about wanting to play a game. Wanted to make the story a miserable slog. As long as the mechanics are working as I expect them to work, there's a chance. Want to take away the fun from mechanics? As long as the story will be something I'll find fun and engaging, I'm on board. Except it's always both together. This sounds like a person that is way too butthurt over this. And like, yes, situation can suck like that, and DMs exist where they turn the story really crappy or make mechanics real crappy or do really bad rulings. That exists and that happens, but that is an exception, not the rule. To attribute it to all DMs suck because they suck because of few bad experiences I had is just such a crappy attitude to have, you know? I don't know, man. That's just how I feel. How do y'all feel? But before you write, let's go ahead and go through a little bit of a list they wrote towards a specific behavior, and then you can tell me if you agree with me or disagree. I could be wrong. I mean, like, listen, I'm a dumb tiefling on the internet. I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong. I'm dumb and stupid and tiefling. Like, who cares? Who cares what I say, right? But I don't mind being wrong. Anyway, let's continue. And it's not a sudden one-off, all from different sessions, campaigns, and DMs. Oh, you made an oath of devotion paladin? How about I take the paladin order into sacks of crap, where if you save someone without their approval, you immediately break their oath. I am very smart. Or you warlock, your patron is a BBG, and of course I will have you choose between betraying it and going powerless or betraying the party. I am very smart. Okay, unironically, I've seen this kind of things actually happen in RPG horror stories that became RPG glory stories where things like that can actually happen. If you belong to a paladin order that's like they can do no wrong. It's a very common thing to be like, but what if they do wrong? Maybe there is corruption in the paladin order. That's a really interesting storyline that can be done well. And I've seen something like that be done well. Or a warlock patron, let's say for example, is indeed a BBG. It's a very common thing to the point where it's a trope. It's a a trope at that point, but I mean, it happens and it can be pulled off. There's nothing wrong with that. If done with a good DM, it could be great. But there's no way all of those things happen to a single person to the point where now everything is bad and terrible. You know what this sounds like? This sounds like somebody read through like 17 pages worth of RPG horror stories, like 300 stories, and internalized everything bad about bad DMs. And I just think that all that stuff they're listing, there's a bigger list by the way. There's a huge list over here. Not even bad DM, just in DM in general will do. This OP generally thinks that all DMs suck and they're all gonna do this, by the way. The list continues. Here, have a dungeon that's all about making your character cry like a bitch to progress through the story doors. Here, have this despairing mother who be sacrificed and turned into the Hackspawn's warlock talisman. The Hackspawn has taken the body of the mother's child, by the way. Guess what, cleric? The god you've been worshipping has been evil all along. Hey, another warlock. Here's the Hexblade that is a source of your power. Also, it wrecked your lifespan. You will die in 3 years. That sounds like a personal attack. If you have problems with the DM, you should talk to the DM, not just like seethe. This is a person that's literally, it feels like they spent 10 years seething instead of actually talking things out. Because I'm sure some of this stuff could be easily resolved. But there's no, the list continues. Listen to this. Barbarian or rogue going reckless with a finesse weapon? That's not a sneak attack, because screw you, that's why. Is this like a Pathfinder thing? Because I think you can still do that with D&D, can you? I don't think there's a requirement for being like a strength weapon, but even then, finesse weapon can still use strength. Does that even matter? I don't know, I don't think that matters. Is this a Pathfinder thing? Archer Battle Master can only get the effects of maneuvers is if you give me a description that convinces me. Your ritual cast comprehend language. Now here's the IRL fantasy alphabet. Waste 30 IRL minutes and 2 in-game days on this translation. I don't know how 2-weapon fighting works, I'll nerf it because screw you, that's why. Hand crossbow plus short sword, designating one as a main weapon, where you attack with the other one. Even as your action, you don't add your dex mod to damage. You're spamming the I look through the eye of my familiar action to get strictly outside of combat. Here, have a point of exhaustion. Here, have this table that screws over his erection. Here, have this table for dismemberment on crits. Here, have this random ass pull mechanic that gives me complete control over your character. Oh, you put a magical curse effect on the boss? Guess what? The boss shreds its armor and removes the curse. Me leaving these games will not change the DM. Me running games that don't do this will not change the DM. Nothing will change the DM, TEH, the DM, because the ability to host games semi-regularly is enough to pull any and every DM on a pedestal and be worshipped as Matt Mercer Jr. It sounds like somebody that got hurt and got very butthurt, and apparently for whatever reason throws in Matt Mercer for no reason at all. None of this ever at all mention Matt Mercer, and they just throw Matt Mercer towards the end because screw you, that's why I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the point of this post even was. I have no idea. And looking at the comment section, there's a lot of people on this post that are also equally as confused and equally think this OP is actually just being so butthurt. They're now gonna be blaming every DM. Every DM sucks but me. I know how to do things better. And yes, I understand. Sometimes some DMs could do some really bad rulings or say like, you know, I'm gonna do this crappy mechanic because screw you, that's why. We've read so many RPG horror stories about bad DMs being bad DMs and being bad at DMing, whether it's in-game, out-of-game, and just in general bad DM etiquette and behavior. We've seen so many stories, but there's no way that you experience all of that and more. And this is how you finish off by blaming Matt Mercer Jr. or somebody's trying to be Matt Mercer Jr. Like it sounds contrived. It sounds like something that's kind of made up. Somebody made up a big boogeyman and is writing about a big boogeyman that doesn't actually exist, but they want to attribute the big boogeyman to somebody else that doesn't exist, so the story becomes believable, and they're trying to make it seem like this is just the kind of thing they always deal with and when it comes to playing in specific games. I understand some DMs can suck, and we'll read about a lot of RPG horror stories, but the one thing I can note note is, it's not every DM. Every bad DM has a bad quality, but there's no way that all of this is going to be in every single DM. Now that's just an expectation that's just an unrealistic expectation. You're trying to paint every DM is going to do this, which is entirely false. There's a comment here from a user, Concrete Exists, that says, ah yes, everyone else is the problem. And I agree. This seems like one of those like, everybody sucks but me. Every other DM sucks but me. I could never do anything wrong, but every other DM is the worst and stuff. I mean, I feel like if you have a whole list of grievances and every single DM is bad, maybe it's not the DMs. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you. I know somebody that specifically went out of the way and said, oh, I go to every friend group and every single time I'm ostracized and bullied and they say this and that. And part of me says, if you've been like in a bunch of different friend groups and every single time you kicked out, maybe it's not the friend groups, maybe it's you. And guess what? Turned out, yes, it was the person. They were just a chronic liar and a gaslighter, and they made up fake stories to make themselves look more interesting and more, I don't know, more zany towards everybody else. And everybody turned out to call them out on no bullcrap because they got fed up with it. And by liar, I mean going as far as even lying about disorders or even having amnesia just to get away from consequences, which is ridiculous. Let's continue with the next story for today. I rediscovered the most notorious That Guy I've ever met. That Guy refers to a specific terrible player or GM whose experience left a lasting impression. You probably all met one at some point. I met That Guy in 2015 through a friend who told me his brother played some real weird version of 3.5 and he didn't like it at all. I made the mistake of getting curious and asking That Guy about it, who smugly went on a 2-hour tirade about a whole lot of nonsense. When I told him that sounds like a load of unplayable baloney, he called me a pleb and left. I since forgot about him until a buddy of mine decided he wanted to DM professionally. So he set up his profile on a platform and started interviewing people. I'm from a small county with a tiny RPG scene, but even then, I wouldn't expect his first player interview was going to be a 6-hour marathon with That Guy. According to That Guy, my buddy should be available to run at all times of the day for at least 6 hours, allow every 3.5 book including OGL material, that's almost 100 books of varying quality. The campaign should be a perfect sandbox with every NPC slated down to the last detail, because that's what he does in his games, no level cap, and PvP enabled. You should expect an account for That Guy stealing the spotlight all the time. My buddy turned him down in the end and did tell me about it the next day, and sure enough, it was the same freaking guy. Here's some highlights from the interview, which were also the stuff he had hit me with or was notorious for. Wow, this guy is like screaming, I am the main character! Please me, DM! You better do things for me here, because you're here to serve me, DM. You're serving me, the benevolent player. Seriously, well, the amount of ego you must have, the amount of hubris you must have, the kind of a fool you have to be to think you're the most important person at the table is crazy. Let's go ahead and read this. Time stop doesn't stop time. According to That Guy, time stop does not stop time. It just accelerates you so much you think your time slowed down. So someone that's ready in action against you can still hit you if they know you're going to cast the spell. So the idea was that he would often kill players that use time stop by having monsters ready full attacks when they cast it, so they could instantly kill them. Insane. The infinite wish hack. Another one was a thing his group was famous for, which was using recursive loop to power themselves up. So essentially, a player would at one point bind or trap an Afridi, then use a simulacrum to make a copy of the Afridi, then another copy, then another ad infinitum. Each Afridi and its copies would still be able to grant 3 wishes. The wish spell in 3.5 can give you a +6 to an ability score, so we'll use it to bump their stats up to an average of 6k or something. Apparently, this was encouraged to ensure their survival. His players would also go to the other tables and demand the DMs let them do this because that's the best way to play. So for a while, it was a thing going around until they got blacklisted from everywhere else. You know, I kind of want to say this probably was like one of the reasons why people don't want to play with them, but also I feel like they're just literally making things up on the go, just to be like, I did this one thing, and I got to like make a bunch of Afridis and have like 6,000 stats and everything, and I went to the other tables and I told them, you better do that to me because I did this other game, and you better accommodate for me, and they kicked me out. Aren't I so smart? You know, that's what they sound like. That's literally what they sound like. They sound so smarmy and smart. they're telling these tall tales that never probably even happened, because I can't believe somebody would even allow something like this. It'd just be too stupid to allow. But they're telling these tall tales as if they actually happen, because he thinks in his head, he's like, oh my god, he's so cool and stuff. But ultimately, everybody's looking at him like he's an obnoxious idiot. Transmutation Trump. Another one of his rulings was that any transmutation spell that changes your shape can overcome and cancel any other shape-shifting spell, meaning casting Alter Self to a polymorph creature would make the Alter Self override polymorph, or shape change, or wild shape, making it a hard counter to any transmutation spells. This also extended to stuff that altered your size. So if you were a druid wild shaped into a bear, and someone cast Enlarge, it didn't enlarge the bear form, because it's not your original form, and you therefore reverted to your original form but larger. That's dumb. No, it stacks, as far as I'm concerned. Unless it says it specifically overrides other specific factors, it doesn't override, it just stacks. The crowd pleaser. One of the stories I would hear that guy repeat was how he was such an amazing DM, he would draw crowds of 100 people. He said the same story in 2 versions that I know of, taking place in the universities of 2 different cities, and the number of people and ratios are always the same. The story goes like, I wasn't even a student there, but I DM for a guy that studied, and he would tell other people run such an awesome game that they wanted to see it. So one time I showed up and ran a mage game. We had a crowd of 150 people, and 70 of them were women. I'm trying to just imagine not laughing my ass off if somebody were to tell me that unironically. I would laugh at their fucking face if they said that to me unironically. Like, specifically in such a smarmy way. 150 of them who came out to watch them, and 70 of them were women. I counted. So stupid. And then of course people would ask him to come again, and he would charge him. So he became a professional DM all the way back in 2003. He would sometimes tour between cities. As an extension of that guy also ran DMing seminars and personally taught all the current famous AP DMs in our country himself. Doesn't matter that at least 2 of them were out of the country at the time. OG NPC Bard songs. That guy claims he also writes every song his NPC Bard sings in his campaign, or writes the music for them too. No, they're not up anywhere. The Way of the Wick. That guy would often quote John Wick word for word of how to run a game, but would never admit it wasn't his idea. He was famous for bragging that he came up with the idea of players not being allowed to tell other players their class and race and level. Neutral is a modifier. This one, I don't quite recall all the arguments he used, so I'll simply state it as much as I can. That guy believes that neutral alignment is actually not an alignment, but a modifier that shows how devoted to an axis you are. Therefore, chaotic neutral people are all schizophrenics with DID because they follow an embodied chaos. Joseph Mengele was lawful neutral because he did everything to promote his race science, but was not evil, just devoted researcher. What? Same applied to the good-evil axis, so you can be lawful neutral evil with neutral being a modifier to both. Can't recall what his top neutral good and neutral evil examples were, or how a true neutral fits into this. Too cool for other tables. That guy was notorious for having been kicked out of every other table he didn't DM for, and he would derail every game he played while trying to force every campaign to turn into the thing he wanted to run and play until people told him to piss off. Most of his stories involve him recounting it as a point of pride, most of them boiling down to, people just couldn't handle me taking the spotlight all the time, so I had to dip. Oh my god, the guy sounds so smarmy. It's not a point of pride to say, people don't want to be around me, I'm just so annoying and people don't want to be around me, people don't want to tolerate me at the table. That's not a badge of honor. That's a self-report that people don't want to be around you and you suck to have at the table. You should not be at any table ever again. It's actually narrative first. Despite his seeming slavish devotion to rules, that guy would be famous for altering a rule based on how he interpreted something happened in a novel, calling his game style novel first and highly narrative. He never elaborated on that, but he used it as an excuse to explain why his ridiculous builds and game breaks should be allowed because characters don't have limits in novels. He also claimed my body should be willing to let players run anything from a donkey to a peasant to a god because it's in a rulebook. Edit. Bonus that guy stories my buddy hit me with yesterday. The 1 million attacks per round build. According to that guy, he had made a special build using meta magic feats that gave him 1 million attacks per round by 10th level. Details were unclear, but it involved some kind of a mix of psionics and regular magic, which he used to destroy a dread realm in 1 round and threaten all the dread lords in DM's campaign. According to my buddy, he claimed to have done that twice, both in his 2nd edition games when he was around 17 and 3.5 edition. Edited this because TGE correct term was Dreadlord, and I know Jack Diddley about Ravenloft apparently. Starbucks incident. That guy bragged about being such an amazing DM. This campaign would often move checked out players to tears and hysterics. According to him, his players would often get so into it after a 4-day non-stop session, skipping sleep and lunches, that he would scream the BBG's name. His crowning achievement was getting an otherwise indifferent player to cry for an evil wizard for free his mother's soul, so much they were kicked out of a Starbucks, though playing at the tail end of an 8-hour game. His other most important story was how he completely freaked out one of the exes about placing his character in a dark room that stretched on forever. I would describe it as being endless darkness, darkness, darkness verbatim, which freaked his ex out so much she said she couldn't sleep at night because it encapsulated cosmic horror so perfectly. Since then, he doesn't run horror games as a rule because he's too good at scaring people. Yeah, too good at scaring people away. Nobody want to be around somebody like that. All these stories are fakes and fibs. But I'm hooked. Let's see it. DM till you drop. That guy would claim that in his 20s, he would often run multiple games across multiple tables and cafes in the area and run from one to the next so much he would collapse from exhaustion. This was actually a thing he mentioned in his multiple stories, bragging how he would sleep for 4 hours between playing multiple groups for days. He'll brag that at the time he made 400 euros per session per group. It's not clear how many sessions he ran a week. Hacks. That guy claimed he stuck the Tarrasque in the bag of holding, thereby taking it out of one round of his first game in the second edition days. He also claimed to have created special magic items identification rule using Mage Hand alone, and also would often use Psionic to break campaigns open since 1991. All his DMs would then step down and let him run the games because he obviously knew better than they did. Not all was rosy, however, as other players would often feel out his skill level and be jealous of him, developing a one-sided rivalry against him. Of course, he would ignore it until he struck, at which point the player would leave the group defeated. Everybody was so jealous of me. I was too smart for the DM, so they just made me DM. And every other player that was jealous of me, I was able to strike him down, defeating them as the bad guy. And I was a good guy all along, because of course you are. You absolute insufferable nitwit. None of these stories are real. None of these stories are true. And they just make me want to gouge my eyes out just reading further and further. I'm interested in how much tall tales he's gonna tell, because, I mean, it's not real. It's not, none of this stuff he's saying he actually did. He's flubbing all of it 100%. But let's see how far this stupid rabbit hole goes, shall we? Pre-Drizzt Dark Elf Ranger. That guy claimed he ran a good aligned drow elf character years before Drizzt's book came out to the country and were widely known. His DM and other players would call him crazy for even trying it, but of course ate their words as soon as they read the books. Master Debater. That guy claimed he was interviewed as debated everyone and every gaming community in the country and would often best them so much with facts and logic they would have no choice but to ban him. He would also use his masterful debating skills to settle disputes across groups, since he was the lawful neutral of every team and therefore perfectly impartial. The all races are monsters argument. That guy argued that since every race is listed in a monster manual as an enemy, all characters should have access to monster feats, regardless of the race's capabilities, as long as it fits the player's vision. So as players playing an elf that want to get an undead specific or other monster specific feat should be allowed to do it. Mentioned savage species a lot, but only know that books are mess in passing. The adventurers don't actually ever have to meet. That guy will brag about having run games where the adventurers never met each other and each played in separate rooms or Discord channels that would never cross paths, just like in the Lord of the Rings, except at specific points with some groups only meeting once in a dream. Note that the latter campaign lasted 14 years with a player character never meeting once. Edited this to include the time span of the campaign I had left out. And this is a big hole of nothing that never happened. Now, on one hand, yes, it would be more hilarious if, let's say, for example, we could actually experience some of the realistic happenings and happenstances, but this is one of those things where that guys, there's a lot of that guy moments, or that guy things that that guys will say, that guys, those girls, whichever, that individual, well, they'll make up things along the way that simply aren't true. And while it is entertaining to read this sort of things as well, I think next story is going to be all about things that actually did happen in RPG Horror Story, or perhaps, perchance, maybe, I don't know, maybe the writer just making up this that guy, he never existed, you know, you never know. That's the mystery with RPG Horror Stories. You never know if you're reading something that actually happened or didn't happen, so I suppose all of it is all fiction. But is it entertaining? Hell yeah, it is. Anyway, next story is probably going to be less about that guy's fictional bullcrap and more about something actually happening at the table. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.